Dr. Elena Vasquez pressed her face against the small window of the research ship and watched the stars. She had been doing this job for 5 years now, studying the air on different planets. Most people thought it was boring work, but Elena loved it. Every world had its own smell, its own mix of gases that told a story about life. The ship Serenity's Edge was not very big. It only had 6 people on board. Elena was the lead scientist. There was Captain Torres, who flew the ship, Dr. Kim, who studied rocks, Engineer Walsh, who fixed things when they broke, Communications Officer Patel, who talked to other ships, and Security Officer Rodriguez, who was supposed to keep them safe. They were far from Earth now, in a part of space where humans had only recently started to explore. The company that paid for their trip wanted them to find planets where people could live someday. Elena's job was to test the air and see if it was safe to breathe. "Elena, we're getting close to the next planet," Captain Torres called from the front of the ship. "Want to come look at the readings?" Elena walked to the captain's chair and looked at the screen. The planet below them was green and blue with white clouds. It looked a lot like Earth, which was always exciting. Planets like this usually had interesting atmospheres to study. "The air looks good from here," Elena said, reading the numbers on the screen. "Oxygen levels are about right. Temperature is warm but not too hot. I think we can take some samples." "Sounds good. I'll take us down to..." Captain Torres stopped talking. He was staring at a different screen now, and his face looked worried. "What's wrong?" Elena asked. "We've got company," Torres said. 3 ships, coming fast. They're not human ships." Elena felt her stomach drop. Meeting alien ships could be good or bad. Sometimes they were friendly and wanted to trade. Sometimes they were not friendly at all. Rodriguez appeared next to them, holding his weapon. "How big are the ships?" "Bigger than ours," Torres said. "Much bigger." The main screen showed the alien ships now. They were long and dark, with strange curves that made them look like giant insects. Elena had never seen ships like these before. "Are they talking to us?" Elena asked. Patel shook his head from his communication station. "They're not answering our messages, but they're sending some kind of signal. It's not in any language I know. Can you translate it?" Torres asked. "I'm trying, but..." Patel's voice was cut off as the ship suddenly shook hard. Everyone grabbed onto something to keep from falling. "They're shooting at us," Rodriguez shouted. "Why are they shooting?" Elena asked. "We didn't do anything to them." "Doesn't matter now," Torres said, his hands flying over the controls. "I'm trying to get us out of here." But the alien ships were faster. They surrounded the human ship quickly, and more shots hit them. The lights went out for a moment, then came back on, but dimmer than before. "Engine is damaged," Walsh called from the back of the ship. "I can't fix it fast enough." "Communications are down too," Patel said. Elena watched the alien ships through the window. They were beautiful in a scary way, but she wondered why they had attacked without even trying to talk first. Maybe they didn't like humans being in their space. Another hit shook the ship, and this time the lights stayed off for longer. When they came back on, Captain Torres looked at everyone with a sad expression. "We can't run," he said. "Our engines are too damaged. We have to surrender." "What do we do?" Elena asked. "We follow their signals and hope they don't kill us," Torres said. The alien ships guided them toward one of their own vessels. It was huge, much bigger than Elena had thought from far away. As they got closer, she could see it had a docking area that opened up like a mouth to swallow their small ship. When their ship was pulled inside, Elena felt the artificial gravity change. Everything felt heavier, like the aliens liked more gravity than humans did. "Stay together," Rodriguez said. "Don't fight unless they attack us first." The door to their ship opened with a hiss, and Elena saw aliens for the first time in her life. They were tall, maybe 8 feet high, and they did look like insects. Their skin was dark green and shiny, and they had 4 arms each. Their heads were large with big black eyes that reflected light. Like mirrors, one of the aliens stepped forward and made clicking sounds. Elena couldn't understand the words, but the meaning was clear enough. They were prisoners now. The aliens were polite but firm as they separated the humans. Elena found herself walking down a long corridor with smooth walls that curved like they were inside a living thing. Everything smelled strange, like flowers and metal mixed together. They put Elena in a small room by herself. It had a bed, a place to sit, and a small window that showed stars. There was also what looked like a bathroom, though it was designed for creatures with different bodies than humans. Elena sat on the bed and tried not to panic. She had always known that space exploration was dangerous. Pirates, equipment failures, getting lost. These were all risks that every space traveler accepted. But being captured by unknown aliens was something else entirely. She thought about her team and hoped they were all right. She thought about her family back on Earth, who probably wouldn't hear about what happened for weeks or months. She thought about all the planets she still wanted to visit and all the atmospheres she still wanted to study. But mostly, she tried to stay calm and observe everything she could. Elena was a scientist, and even in a situation like this, her training told her to watch and learn. These aliens had technology she had never seen before. Their ship was clearly more advanced than anything humans had built. As she looked around her cell, Elena noticed small vents near the ceiling. Air was flowing through them, keeping the room at a comfortable temperature. Whatever these aliens wanted with her and her team, they seemed to want them alive and healthy. That was something, at least. Elena lay down on the strange bed and tried to rest. Tomorrow would probably bring answers, and she wanted to be ready for whatever came next. Elena woke up when bright light suddenly filled her cell. She had no idea how long she had been sleeping. Without windows showing day and night, it was impossible to tell time on the alien ship. The door to her cell opened with a soft whoosh. 2 of the tall insect-like aliens entered. They were wearing what looked like uniforms, dark blue with silver markings. One of them pointed at Elena and made clicking sounds. Elena stood up slowly, keeping her hands where they could see them. She didn't want to do anything that might make them think she was dangerous. The aliens led her through more curved corridors. Elena tried to remember the path in case she needed to find her way back later. The walls were covered in patterns that might have been writing or decoration. Everything was clean and smooth, like the inside of a seashell. They brought her to a large room with a high ceiling. In the center was a chair that looked like it was made for humans, not aliens. Elena realized they must have built it just for her. That was either a good sign or a very bad one. Behind the chair was a wall made of something like glass, but thicker. On the other side, Elena could see several aliens watching her. One of them was bigger than the others, with more silver markings on its uniform. It had to be their leader. The aliens made Elena sit in the chair, but they didn't tie her down or hurt her. They just pointed at the chair and waited until she sat. Then they left the room, and Elena heard a door lock behind them. She was alone now, with the aliens watching her from behind their protective glass. Elena looked around the room and saw small holes in the walls and ceiling. Vents, just like in her cell. But these ones were different. They had covers that could open and close. Elena had a bad feeling about those vents. The leader alien pressed something, and Elena heard its voice through speakers. The words were in a language she didn't know, but there was a machine that translated them into English. "Human," the translated voice said. It sounded flat and emotionless, like a computer. "We are the Kethmori. We control this region of space. Your species has been expanding into our territory without permission." Elena looked up at the aliens behind the glass. "We didn't know this was your space. We're just scientists. We study planets and their atmospheres. We don't want to fight anyone. All species say this when they are caught, the alien leader said. But humans are different. You spread faster than other races. You go to dangerous places that others avoid. We want to understand why. Because we're curious, Elena said honestly. We want to learn about the universe. Curiosity, the alien repeated. Yes, we have studied your species' history. You seem to enjoy danger. This is unusual. Most intelligent species avoid unnecessary risks. Elena thought about that. It was true that humans did things that other species might think were crazy. Rock climbing, deep sea diving, exploring active volcanoes. Humans did these things for fun. We've learned that the best way to understand a species is to test their limits, the alien continued. We will now test yours. That's when Elena noticed that the vents in the room were starting to open. What you are about to experience, the alien said, is our most effective interrogation tool. We call it terror gas. It is made from the same chemicals that our natural predators once used to paralyze their prey. Elena's heart started beating faster. A gas weapon. As a scientist who studied atmospheres, she knew how dangerous gas weapons could be. Some gases could kill you in seconds. Others could drive you insane. This gas, the alien continued, causes extreme fear and panic in all intelligent species we have tested. Within minutes, subjects experience hallucinations of their worst nightmares. Most begin begging for mercy within the first minute. The vents opened wider, and Elena could see green mist starting to flow into the room. It moved slowly, like it was heavier than normal air. We do not enjoy causing suffering, the alien said. Answer our questions about human expansion plans, and we will stop the gas before permanent damage occurs. Elena watched the green mist flowing down from the vents. Her scientific mind was working even as fear tried to take over. The gas was definitely heavier than air. It was sinking to the floor and spreading outward. That told her something about its chemical composition. I don't know about any expansion plans, Elena said truthfully. I'm just a scientist who studies air and atmospheres. The gas will reach you in 30 seconds, the alien warned. Last chance to cooperate. Elena stood up from the chair and backed away from the approaching mist, but there was nowhere to go. The room was sealed. The green gas kept flowing in, and now it was spreading across the entire floor. 20 seconds, the alien said. Elena looked up at the aliens behind the glass. They were all watching her intently, waiting for her to panic. The big one had its 4 hands pressed against the glass, like it was excited to see what would happen. 10 seconds. The green mist reached Elena's feet. She could smell it now. It had a sharp chemical odor mixed with something organic, like flowers and laboratory chemicals combined. It reminded her of something, but she couldn't quite remember what. 5 seconds. Elena took a deep breath and tried to stay calm. As a scientist, she had been exposed to lots of different gases and chemicals during her career. She had been trained in what to do if she accidentally breathed something dangerous. The mist reached her knees, then her waist. Elena had no choice now. She had to breathe it or suffocate. She took a slow, careful breath through her nose. The aliens behind the glass leaned forward, waiting for her to scream or fall down or start hallucinating. Instead, Elena paused, tilted her head slightly, and took another breath. The smell was definitely familiar now. She closed her eyes for a moment, thinking. Then she opened her eyes and smiled. "Oh," Elena said, sounding surprised and pleased. "This smells like my grandmother's garden back home." The aliens behind the glass looked at each other with confusion. Elena took another deep breath, this time more relaxed. Yes, definitely like Grandma's garden. She lived near a chemical plant, and the air always smelled like this mix of flowers and industrial chemicals. I used to love visiting her when I was little. The big alien pressed more buttons, and the gas concentration increased. The green mist was so thick now that Elena could barely see the walls. And it reminds me of camping trips with my dad, Elena continued, sounding nostalgic. He taught me to identify poisonous plants by their smell. This has that same sharp edge to it that means dangerous, but interesting. Behind the glass, the aliens were making agitated clicking sounds at each other. Their instruments showed that the gas concentration was now at levels that should have killed or completely incapacitated any test subject. But the human was just standing there, breathing normally and talking about childhood memories. Elena sat back down in the chair, completely comfortable. You know, this is actually kind of relaxing. Like aromatherapy. Do you mind if I ask what's in it? I'm an atmospheric scientist, and I'd love to know the chemical composition. The green mist was now so thick that Elena could barely see her own hands. But she felt completely normal. In fact, she was starting to feel curious about her surroundings in a way she hadn't before. Behind the protective glass, the Kathmori were in chaos. Elena could hear them clicking and buzzing at each other in what sounded like panicked conversation. She couldn't understand their language, but their body language was clear enough. They were confused and frightened. The concentration is now at maximum levels, the leader finally said through the translator. Its voice sounded less confident than before. How are you still conscious? Elena stood up and walked around the room, examining the walls while she breathed the thick gas. You know, I think I understand why this doesn't affect me the way you expect, she said thoughtfully. Explain, the alien demanded. Well, first of all, humans have a really weird relationship with fear, Elena said, running her hand along the smooth wall. Most species probably evolved to avoid dangerous things, right? But humans, we actually seek out fear for entertainment. She found what looked like a small panel in the wall and bent down to examine it more closely. We watch scary movies, we ride roller coasters, we go bungee jumping. We pay money to be frightened because it makes us feel good afterward. That is not possible, the alien said. Fear is a survival mechanism. No intelligent species would seek it out deliberately. Elena laughed, and the sound seemed to disturb the watching aliens even more. Oh, you should see some of the things humans do for fun. We jump out of airplanes, we swim with sharks, we climb mountains where the air is so thin it can kill you. We even have something called horror movies, where we sit in dark rooms and pay to be scared by imaginary monsters. She moved to another wall and found more panels. The room was obviously designed for observation and testing. But Elena was learning about Kathmori technology just by looking around. But that's not the main reason your gas doesn't work on me, Elena continued. The real reason is that humans evolved on a world that was trying to kill us every single day. Elaborate, the alien said. Elena could hear uncertainty in its voice now. Earth is a nightmare planet, Elena explained cheerfully. The air can be poisonous depending on where you go. The water can kill you. Most of the plants are toxic. The animals are dangerous. Even the weather tries to murder you. She found another vent and stood underneath it, letting the gas flow directly over her face. My grandmother's garden? The one this gas reminds me of. It was next to a chemical plant that leaked poison into the soil for 30 years. But she grew the most beautiful flowers there. We didn't know it was dangerous when I was little. The aliens behind the glass were very still now, listening intently. And those camping trips with my dad? He was teaching me which plants would kill me if I touched them, which berries would make me sick, which mushrooms would make me see things that weren't there. By the time I was 10 years old, I could identify dozens of different poisons just by smell. Elena sat back down and took another deep breath of the terror gas. Do you want to know something funny? When I was in college studying atmospheric science, we had to test our own tolerance to different gases. carbon monoxide, hydrogen sulfide, methane, chlorine gas. I scored higher than anyone in my class. This is impossible, the alien leader said, but its voice was quieter now. Not impossible, Elena said. Just human. See, when your species evolved, you probably had one or two major predators that used chemical weapons, right? So you developed fear responses to those specific chemicals. She stood up again and walked closer to the glass wall. Through the thick mist, she could see the aliens backing away from their side of the barrier. But humans evolved on a world where everything was dangerous. Poisonous plants, toxic gases from volcanoes, bacterial infections, viral diseases, parasites, venomous animals, and thousands of different ways to die. So we didn't develop fear responses to specific chemicals. Elena pressed her face close to the glass, and several aliens jumped backward. We developed the ability to adapt to almost anything, she said. Our livers can process toxins that would kill most species. Our kidneys can filter out poisons. Our brains learn to stay calm and think clearly even when we're exposed to things that should terrify us. But the hallucinations, the alien said weakly. The terror gas causes vivid hallucinations of the subject's worst fears. Elena thought about that for a moment. Yeah, I think I'm having some mild hallucinations, she said. But they're not scary ones. I keep seeing my grandmother's garden and my dad showing me how to test soil samples for contamination. Happy memories of learning about dangerous things. She walked back to the center of the room and sat down cross-legged on the floor, completely relaxed in the thick poison gas. There's something else you should know about humans, Elena said. We don't just tolerate dangerous things. We study them. We learn from them. We find ways to make them useful. The alien leader was very quiet for a long time. Elena could see the other Keth Mori moving around frantically behind the glass, checking instruments and having urgent conversations. This gas, Elena said, it's really quite sophisticated. The way it's heavier than normal air, the way it disperses evenly, the chemical complexity of it. Your species has developed some impressive biotechnology. You are analyzing our weapon, the alien said, and there was something like fear in its translated voice. Well, yes, Elena said matter-of-factly. I'm a scientist. It's what I do. And this is fascinating. I'm guessing it's based on pheromones from your homeworld's apex predators? Probably modified and concentrated. The organic compounds suggest a biological origin, but the synthetic elements show significant chemical engineering. Elena stood up and walked to the wall where the gas was flowing in. The delivery system is elegant too. Controlled release, even distribution, probably designed to maintain specific concentrations for extended periods. Stop analyzing our defenses, the alien said. And now it definitely sounded scared. Oh, but this isn't a defense, Elena said, turning back toward the glass with another smile. This is a weapon, and not a very effective one, from what I can tell. She gestured at herself, still standing perfectly healthy in gas that should have reduced her to a gibbering wreck. See, the thing about weapons is that they only work if your target doesn't understand them, Elena continued. But once someone figures out how they work, they stop being scary and start being interesting. The gas was beginning to thin now, being filtered out through other vents. But Elena had been breathing it at maximum concentration for nearly 20 minutes with no ill effects. I have a question for you, Elena said to the alien leader. What happens when a weapon that has never failed suddenly stops working completely? The alien didn't answer. Because I think, Elena said thoughtfully, that makes the people who were depending on that weapon very, very vulnerable. The terror gas was almost completely gone from the room now, but Elena could tell that something had changed. The aliens behind the glass were moving differently, more quickly, more nervously. Their confident posture from earlier was completely gone. "We need to discuss this situation," the leader alien finally said through the translator. "Wait here." "I'm not really going anywhere," Elena replied, gesturing at the locked room dot. But as the aliens left their observation area, Elena started looking around her prison more carefully. She had learned a lot about Kethmori technology just from watching how the gas system worked. The vents, the air filtration, the electronic controls, it all gave her clues about how their ship operated. More importantly, she had learned something crucial about Kethmori psychology. They were a species that depended completely on their terror weapon. When it failed, they didn't have a backup plan. They panicked. Elena walked to the glass wall and pressed her ear against it. The material was thick, but she could still hear distant sounds from the other side. Clicking, buzzing, what sounded like arguments. The aliens were definitely not calm anymore. She sat down and thought about her situation. Her team was somewhere else on this ship, probably in similar cells. The Kethmori had attacked their research vessel without warning, which meant they were likely hostile to all human expansion in this region of space. But now, Elena had accidentally discovered their greatest weakness. Their ultimate weapon didn't work on humans. That changed everything. The door to her cell opened again, and this time 4 Kethmori entered instead of 2. They were all wearing different uniforms now, ones that looked like armor. Elena noticed they were also keeping their distance from her. "Come," one of them said through a portable translator. "Commander Zikthara wants to speak with you." Elena stood up slowly. "Commander Zikthara? Is that your leader?" The aliens didn't answer, but they gestured for her to walk ahead of them. Elena noticed they stayed several feet behind her as they moved through the corridors. It was like they were afraid she might do something dangerous. They brought her to a different room, much larger than the testing chamber. This one had windows that showed stars outside, and Elena realized they must be in the command center of the ship. The alien leader from before was waiting for her. Up close, Elena could see more details about its appearance. The creature was definitely insect-like, but more sophisticated than the insects on Earth. Its black eyes reflected light in complex patterns, and its skin had a texture like polished wood. "I am Commander Zikthara," it said. "I lead this vessel and this mission." "Elena Vasquez," Elena replied. "I lead the atmospheric research team you captured." "Dr. Vasquez," Zikthara said, and Elena was surprised it knew her title. "We have studied your ship's records. You are indeed a scientist, not a military scout. I told you that already." "Yes, but we thought you might be lying to hide your true purpose." Zikthara moved closer, and Elena could see her own reflection in its large eyes. "No military operative would react to terror gas the way you did." Elena nodded. "Probably not. Military people are trained to resist interrogation, but they're still basically normal humans. They would have been affected by your gas, just maybe not as quickly as civilians. But you were not affected at all." "No, I wasn't." Zikthara was quiet for a long moment. "Dr. Vasquez, I must ask you something directly. Are you truly representative of your species? Or are you somehow unusual among humans?" Elena thought about that question seriously. "I'm probably a little more resistant to chemical exposure than average because of my work and training. But honestly, any human would have handled your terror gas better than you expected. Explain." "Humans are just tough," Elena said. "We evolved on a world where we had to be tough to survive. Poison gas, toxic plants, dangerous animals, extreme weather, diseases, contaminated water. If we weren't naturally resistant to most environmental hazards, our species would have died out long ago." Zikthara's 4 hands moved in what Elena was starting to recognize as a nervous gesture. "Our terror gas has been tested on representatives of 17 different intelligent species. It has never failed. What kinds of species? Elena asked. Herbivorous species, aquatic species, desert species, high-gravity species, low-gravity species. Zikthara paused. But never a species from a world as hostile as yours appears to be. Elena nodded. That makes sense. Most intelligent species probably evolved on worlds that were relatively safe, right? Otherwise, they would have spent all their time just surviving instead of developing technology and civilization. Correct. But Earth is different, Elena continued. Humans developed intelligence partly because our world was so dangerous. We needed to be smart to avoid all the things trying to kill us. And we needed to be tough to survive the things we couldn't avoid. Zikthara walked to one of the windows and looked out at the stars. Dr. Vasquez, my species has controlled this region of space for over 200 years. We have stopped the expansion of dozens of other species using our Terra gas. And now you've met one species it doesn't work on. Yes. Zik. Thara turned back to Lena. This creates a significant problem for us. Elena could see the fear in the alien's posture now. The Kethmori had built their entire strategy around a weapon that was useless against humans. If word got out that their ultimate tool had failed, it would change the balance of power in this entire region of space. There's something else you should consider, Elena said carefully. Humans don't usually travel alone. When our ship doesn't report back on schedule, other human ships will come looking for us. How many ships? Elena shrugged. Could be a few scout vessels. Could be an entire fleet. Depends on how important my research is considered, and whether anyone thinks we've run into trouble. That wasn't entirely true. Elena knew that her research mission wasn't important enough to send a fleet after. But Zikthara didn't know that. And when those ships arrive, Elena continued, they'll be carrying humans who are just as immune to your Terra gas as I am. But unlike me, some of them will be soldiers. Zikthara's nervous hand gestures became more pronounced. What do you suggest we do about this situation? Elena was quiet for a moment. She was just a scientist, not a diplomat or a military strategist. But she understood that she was in a position to possibly prevent a war between humans and Kethmori. I suggest we talk, Elena said finally. You're clearly an intelligent species with advanced technology. Humans are good at adapting to new situations and working with other species when we need to. Maybe there's a way for us to coexist in this region of space. And if we cannot reach an agreement? Elena looked out the window at the stars, thinking about all the human ships that might be heading this way in the future. Then you're going to have a much bigger problem than one captured research team, she said quietly. 3 months later, Elena stood in what used to be a Kethmori interrogation facility and was now the first joint human-alien research laboratory in this region of space. The room where she had been tested with Terra gas had been converted into a sophisticated atmospheric analysis center. Dr. Vasquez, the new compound is ready for testing, said Dr. Kithvil, Elena's Kethmori research partner. The alien scientist had been one of the first to volunteer for the joint program after Elena's initial encounter with Commander Zikthara. Elena walked over to the testing chamber, which now had 2 separate observation areas, one designed for humans, one for Kethmori. The gas they were about to test wasn't a weapon this time. Instead, it was a medical compound designed to help humans with lung diseases. What's the concentration? Elena asked, pulling on a breathing mask that would let her inhale controlled amounts of the new gas. Start with 10%, Dr. Kithvil replied from behind a protective barrier. Based on your species' remarkable resistance to atmospheric toxins, we believe this concentration will be therapeutic rather than harmful. Elena smiled as she remembered her first conversation with Zikthara about human immunity to the Terra gas. That discovery had changed everything. The negotiations that followed her capture had been tense at first. Elena's prediction about human search vessels had proven correct. 3 ships had arrived looking for the missing research team within 2 weeks. But instead of finding a battle, they had discovered Elena working as an unofficial ambassador between the 2 species. Commander Zikthara had turned out to be remarkably pragmatic once the initial shock wore off. The Kethmori's Terra gas had been their primary tool for controlling territorial expansion, but it had also been their only tool. When faced with a species that was completely immune to their main weapon, they had 2 choices: fight a war they couldn't win, or find a new way to coexist. Elena had suggested the third option: cooperation. Beginning test sequence now, Dr. Kithful announced. The new gas flowed into the chamber, and Elena breathed it carefully. It had a completely different smell from the Terra gas. This one was clean and slightly sweet, like fresh rain. Elena could feel it working immediately, opening her airways and making breathing easier. "Feels good," Elena reported. "No negative effects. I think we can increase the concentration for the next test." Dr. Kithful made notes on a tablet designed for 4-handed use. "Excellent. This compound could help millions of humans with respiratory problems." The medical research had been Elena's idea. Building on the discovery that Kethmori biotechnology could affect human physiology in unexpected ways. If their Terra gas was useless as a weapon against humans, maybe other Kethmori biological compounds could be useful as medicine instead. It had taken weeks to convince both species that cooperation was possible. Many humans were suspicious of working with aliens who had attacked them first. Many Kethmori were terrified of a species that seemed immune to their defensive capabilities. But Elena's scientific enthusiasm had been infectious. When she explained to human officials how advanced Kethmori biotechnology was, they began to see the potential benefits of an alliance. When she showed Kethmori scientists how human chemical resistance could make them ideal test subjects for new medical compounds, they began to see humans as valuable research partners instead of terrifying invaders. "Dr. Vasquez," Dr. Kithful said, "I have been wondering about something." "What's that?" "During your first exposure to our Terra gas, you said it reminded you of your grandmother's garden. Were you truly experiencing pleasant memories, or were you simply trying to show strength?" Elena laughed. "Both, actually. The smell really did remind me of my childhood. But I was also trying to stay calm and observe everything I could. When you're a scientist, observation becomes an automatic response to new situations, even dangerous situations." "Especially dangerous situations," Elena said. "The more dangerous something is, the more important it is to understand it." Dr. Kithful's large eyes reflected the lights in a pattern Elena had learned meant amusement. This explains much about human behavior. Other species avoid danger to survive. Humans study danger to overcome it. Something like that. Elena checked her readings and signaled that she was ready to end the test. The gas was quickly filtered out of the chamber, and she joined Dr. Kithful in the observation area. "How long until we can begin clinical trials?" Elena asked, "with human volunteers?" "Perhaps 6 months," Dr. Kithful replied. "The Kethmori Medical Council wants to run additional safety tests first." "That's reasonable. Even though humans are resistant to most toxins, it's still important to be careful with new medical treatments." They walked together toward the main laboratory, where a dozen other human and Kethmori scientists were working on various joint projects. The cooperation program had grown rapidly once both species realized how much they could learn from each other. Human resistance to biological and chemical hazards made them ideal test subjects for Kethmori medical research. Kethmori biotechnology gave humans access to entirely new categories of medicine and environmental adaptation tools. Dr. Vasquez, Dr. Kithful said as they reached the main lab. I have another question. Sure. Do you ever regret that your capture led to all of this? The joint research program has changed both our species significantly. Elena looked around the laboratory, watching humans and Kethmori working side by side on projects that would have been impossible for either species alone. Through the windows, she could see ships from both civilizations docked together in what had become a truly integrated space station. No, Elena said finally. I don't regret it at all. This is what science is supposed to do, bring different people together to learn new things and solve problems. She paused at one of the workstations where a young human researcher was, collaborating with a Kethmori biochemist on a project to develop air filtration systems for hostile planets. Besides, Elena added with a smile, getting captured by aliens and accidentally becoming an ambassador was a lot more exciting than just taking atmospheric readings would have been. Dr. Kithful made the clicking sound that Elena had learned was Kethmori laughter. Your species has a very unusual definition of exciting. True, Elena agreed. But that's what makes us good partners, right? You have incredible biotechnology and scientific knowledge. We have the ability to safely test things that would be too dangerous for most species to even approach. As they walked deeper into the laboratory, Elena thought about how much had changed since that day when she first breathed terror gas and smiled. Her immunity to a Kethmori weapon had accidentally become the foundation for a new kind of alliance between species. Now, instead of using their biological weapons to stop expansion by other species, the Kethmori were sharing their advanced biotechnology with humans. And instead of seeing hostile aliens as obstacles to overcome, humans were learning to see them as potential partners in exploring the universe. Elena pulled up the schedule on her tablet and saw that tomorrow she would be testing another new compound, this one designed to help humans adapt to high radiation environments. It was dangerous work, but exactly the kind of challenge that made Elena feel most alive. She breathed deeply, tasting the clean, filtered air of the space station, and smiled the same calm smile she had given Commander Zikthara all those months ago. Some species avoided danger to survive, but humans had learned something different. Sometimes the most dangerous situations led to the most amazing discoveries.